Warning: the following episode contains descriptions of sexual violence against children and domestic violence. Listener discretion is strongly advised. You're listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast. This is a special episode featuring a recovering addict. Hi, my name is Sophie X. I'm the host and producer of the Voices of Recovery podcast. I'm joined here today by Julio. Hi, Julio.
Hello, how you doing, Sophie?
Julio. Every time he says, hi, my name is Julio, that's what you hear in the rooms. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being on our special series of grief and recovery and for doing our readings for the Just for Today and for this Bad for the end of March.
Definitely thank you. And in the room, they say it's not who you know, it's Julio.
I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah, somebody gave me that nickname for some reason.
I love it. I love it. It suits you very well. So, as I said, you're on the special series of grief and recovery, and you share in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous very frequently about your grief counseling in dealing with the loss of your son now that you've been clean. You're 1 year and over 2 months at this point.
Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Very proud of you. So, tell me a little bit about how you came into the rooms and your story and how you've come to deal with the loss of your son.
The way I came into the rooms was I was using opiates. I was shooting heroin. I really took off to the races when my son was murdered 5 years ago. I didn't know how to process the emotions. I really didn't know how to feel emotions. I just knew that I was hurt. But of course, I kept on numbing myself with heroin where I wouldn't feel anything. So towards the end, I started overdosing a lot because they were cutting it with fentanyl. And I remember the eighth overdose, I ended up in ICU, and I was laying there, and I could hear the doctors telling my sisters I wasn't going to make it. It was all in my head, but I'm saying, I'm right here. I mean, what are you talking about? I wasn't afraid to die. I was like, I'm going to go see my son. I'll go see my son. I'm not afraid to die. And then out of nowhere, a moment of clarity hit me, and it was just like, I'm scared to live. When I could finally speak the first words out of my mouth to the doctor when he was asking me, you know your name, I said, I need help. The first words I told the doctor was, I need help. Where do you want to go? And then I just started my journey then. That was January 6th. In the process of getting clean, I didn't realize that all these emotions were going to come up. That's when it really hit me, that I lost my son.
And this isn't your first go around in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous.
No. I actually got my life together. I was taking care of both of my boys, working 2 jobs. I was doing good, but I got a call on Thanksgiving 5 years ago. My whole family just looked at me and was like, and I could just tell something was wrong. And I grabbed the phone and they told me that my son had been murdered. Basically, before I even went to identify the body, I already went and picked up drugs, picked up liquor, I picked up every kind of drug there was. So by the time I went to identify the body, I was already numb. Then I wanted to take revenge, all them kind of emotions. I wasn't thinking right. I wasn't thinking correctly. His mother wouldn't identify him, so I had to be the one to identify the body, which kind of like threw me for a loop. I just didn't know how to deal with any kind of emotions because in my upbringing, I really wasn't taught how to feel. I grew up more in the 70s. I grew up in that era where men don't cry, and when you get hit, you don't cry or else you get hit harder. Your men are made of stone. I grew up in an era where a man couldn't be in the kitchen. I grew up with a very violent and very abusive father. And from the age of 6 on up, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't want to be myself. Also, I had an uncle that was raping and molesting me from the age of 6 to the age of 9. So I always thought something was wrong with me, and I hated myself. I felt like dirty. I come to realize now that it wasn't my doing, but at that time, I didn't even know how to process feelings then. Basically, I grew up as far as physically into a man, but mentally and emotionally, I was stunted ever since I was 6 years old. So I never really dealt with emotions. I just knew I loved my son because he was one person in my life that really accepted me no matter what. He loved me. And sometimes I couldn't understand why, but he did no matter what. We lived by the saying, I'm not going to bury my kids are going to bury me. That didn't happen with my son.
Were you clean at the time when you found out that he passed away?
Yeah.
And so it was just that situation that drove you to use.
Yeah. It's like I couldn't get out of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can't deal with this. And I didn't. And then I abandoned the rest of my children. I just took to the streets. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to be around nobody. So basically just chose to be homeless. I chose to be homeless, and I just kept on drowning myself every day. It got to the point where I was telling my sisters, I got three beautiful sisters that love me, and I was telling them that my son's death literally almost became my own death.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with it now, but I'm talking to people and I'm meeting other people that have lost a child or have lost someone close to them, and we talk. Because, right now, one of the issues I'm having is that I haven't shed a tear about that yet. I don't think I shed a tear when my mother passed and my brother passed. I've never processed any kind of loss unless I was numbing myself. I picked up at the age of 10 for the first time, and I never stopped until up, around 2010. But all that time when I got in recovery then, first of all, I wasn't completely honest with my sponsor back then. Things like rape and molestation, things like that, I thought I was taking to my grave. So I never mentioned it. I didn't think that's what was holding me back, but I come to realize now that things like that do hold us back.
Absolutely.
And I still resented my uncle. When I went away to prison, I did a lot of time in prison. I got arrested. It was 1989. I didn't come home to 2002. I had a daughter when I was 15, just a high school crush. But I didn't know she was pregnant, and she hid it very well until it showed. But I had a beautiful daughter, and I thought, out of anybody I could trust, my dad. So when I finally came home, I come home. Now I'm even worse than I went in. There was nothing correctional about the correctional facilities upstate. And I come to find out my father raped my daughter and molested my daughter.
Oh my God. While you were away.
Yes. So
Oh
I tried to kill my father. I didn't succeed, of course, but, and they crushed my mother because it came to light. And then, people didn't want to believe it. And then my daughter, we went and searched my father's bedroom, and she showed me the pictures.
that he had of her. Oh my goodness.
And then that I showed to the family, and even then, there was a divide in the family. Like,
They didn't want to believe it.
yeah, and I'm like, listen, these are Polaroids. These are like, you got to fan these. And they thought I was wrong for trying to kill my father. I wasn't thinking correct at the time. When I came home, I definitely was doing drugs. I was doing drugs in prison. Heroin is a big drug. People might not do it in the street, but if you go to prison for a long time, it's the one drug you get hooked on because it numbs out you doing time. I think with my son, it's like I didn't know who to talk to about it. I just couldn't understand why. And of course, I hated God. I used to curse God out and be like, why'd you do this to me? Blaming him when he wasn't even at fault. It wasn't him that pulled the trigger on the gun. But I just couldn't understand it. Losing people after people in my family. It got to the point where I just couldn't do anything besides do dope. Do any kind of opiate just to numb myself out. Just get rid of that pain.
How long were you clean for at the time when you found out that your son was murdered?
I was going 6 years, but I was making less meetings. I was working a lot. I was working 2 full-time jobs. Kind of kept me busy, but back then I was trying to make up time for my children that I robbed them of. And, but at the same time, I started going out, like I go out to like family events. And of course, I got half of my family sells drugs, the other half go to church. And it's always been like that. That's why, like today in time, like I think I'm grieving my son because I realized one thing in recovery: healing is impossible in loneliness. I cannot heal by myself. I need others. I need that. That's why I love when in NA you say, "What I can't do alone, we can do together." And every time we form that circle, it means a lot to me because that's something physical that's let me know we're doing this together. That's why we form that circle. I relish on the embrace, the hug. The hug seems way more personal and accepting than a handshake. Handshake is atmosphere between two people. A hug, you get rid of the atmosphere, and it's both of you, whether you have fears or not, but you're there together. So I look at it like that. But I understand in my healing, I've been working the 12 steps. I have a sponsor. He helps me the best he can, but he just realized, not for nothing, but recently he lost somebody close to cancer, so, and then he's asking me, how am I dealing with it? Well, I told him, well, I got a sponsor. I got you. You're helping me through it. But he said, Julio, I never lost a child. I don't have a child. It doesn't matter. But when you lose somebody so close to you that, like, for example, Valentine's Day was yesterday. And I remember in the past, I used to go get teddy bears and stuff for my kids, my sons too, for Valentine's and stuff like that. And they always look for it. Like my son, when he had his girlfriend, Dad, what do I get for Valentine's? I'll be like, oh, let's go over here. I miss the moments, but I cherish the memories today. At one time, the memories would make me want to stick a spike in my arm and not want to see it. But today, I am willing to go through the emotions, and one day, hopefully, tears will come down for me. Because sometimes I feel like I'm robbing them of mourning them when I don't cry. But I think my life has been so traumatic that the tears dried up a long time ago. But one day I know God's going to give me that opportunity.
Well, it seems like you've been in survival mode since your childhood, right? You endured so much trauma.
Oh, yeah, somebody was explaining that to me. They was like, Julio, you weren't living. You were surviving. Because my father was so abusive to my mother. I mean, beating her up and stuff. And I remember at the age of 6 making fists and just thinking in my head at 6 years old saying, I'm going to kill that man when I get older. What 6-year-old thinks like that?
Yeah.
But that's all I've seen. And, my aunts and uncles, they were the same way. That's why I think all of us started running away from home at such a young age. But, yeah, basically, my whole life I've been in survival mode. And it kind of sucks because I was in it so long, I didn't realize I was in survival mode. I was depressed for so long and always on eggshells, man. Like my anxiety, I was nervous. That felt normal to me towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I walked into the rooms when I left rehab. And I walked into the room and I seen so many people that brought me the message in there. And that's what made me feel like, all right, I'm in the right place. And like they said they were going to learn to love me till I started to learn myself. And they were going to let me know I was worth it when I walked in feeling worthless. Because I was still beating myself up for all the stuff in the past. And sometimes I kind of like get in that mode now, but I reach out now. I talk to somebody. I use the program. The program is there for me to let me know, and I remind myself those letters. N.A. Somebody said, "Never alone, never again." That's like seared in my heart and in my mind, in my soul. Never alone, never again. I was alone all them years. I was so lonely. And then I feel like I beat myself. Like, was my son feeling alone? Because I have another son. I reach out to him, and his mother tells me, you can do no wrong in this kid's eyes. I said, yo, did he know? He knows. Yes, but he was like, oh, Dad, to get it together. You must do something great with them because they love you so much. And meanwhile, I thanked the mothers. I actually called them up and said, thank you for being a great mother, but also thank you for being a great father when I couldn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, they respect me because I actually told them that, and I meant it. But these kids, it's like, they love me. I got my niece in Florida. I mean, being in recovery has opened so many doors. I got a niece. My brother passed. This December 5th was the first year. He passed from cancer. I took care of him. Out of everybody in the family, my brother wanted me, and they were like, yo, he's a heroin addict. He's like, that's the only person I want taking care of because he's the only one that's going to be honest with me. God never lied to my brother. But now I have a niece, and she was going through 17, going through that phase of suicide and stuff, and I was like, well, so her mother called me and says, can you come down? We'll fly you down. Just for a couple of days, can you talk to her? So, of course, the program told me and denied me that because I'm, going into my own place and stuff. And I got some issues going on.
And you're in a sober house. That's what you mean by the program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in the sober house, yes, recovery house. And they actually called me back the next day and said, what about if we fly up to you for the weekend? I go, what? You really willing to? You really believe that my presence and my words? Absolutely. And they flew her up. They flew up 3 weeks ago, and she came and visited me at the program and had a wonderful time. And I got to see her. She's coming up in March for her birthday. They flew up for a weekend and then flew her back so she could go back to school on Monday.
Amazing.
And I was just like,
Just to spend the weekend with you.
yeah, because they felt that it was like, we don't know what it is, but she loves you. Like when you call her and talk to her, she'll run down and say, "Oh, I just got off the phone with Theo. We had such," and she's always saying, "I love this version of Theo."
Mm.
So I guess with me, I think I don't know if it's with all of us. With me, it's like I'm the last one to see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm the last one to see it. Like I told my son, I said, "Yo, if I failed you, oh, Dad, you haven't failed me." I'm looking at my son like, "Man, are you?" Then I go, "Okay, maybe I'm beating myself up too much. I don't know." But all I know is that I had to look at my son in a casket. And that messed me up. That really messed me up. I just didn't know how to deal with it. And every way I chose to deal with it, like an addict, I just chose to numb myself of all emotions, which I've been doing all my life. But thank God for Narcotics Anonymous that has given me the opportunity to be able to speak about it and not be judged, and also to be able to hear other people that go, wow, I'm going through the same thing too. And that right there just makes you feel not alone. And like I said, healing's impossible in loneliness, and I don't feel lonely.
Yeah. In looking back at your relapse and what precipitated that, other than the very traumatic event of your son passing, do you think that there were any weaknesses in your program that you're able to like put directly in your sight this time?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, resentments. I was holding on to resentments and I wasn't speaking about them. When I did my fourth step, like certain things like the violations to me, like the rape of my daughter, stuff like that, I didn't write that down. I didn't bring that out. So basically, I was like saying to myself, okay, I'm going to do this, but you're not getting this. And what was happening was, no matter how much I did a little bit, it didn't work because I was holding on to too much. And one thing, I was not going to put my hand up and say that happened to me. This time around, I basically, it's like I half stepped it. It's like somebody says in the room, but, part time you get part time benefits, full time you get full time benefits. I was part time in it. Yes, I had jobs. I was working. Yes, I was financially support my children. And I kind of thought that was the image now. That was my image. Okay, I work. I'm working. I'm doing good. But I didn't realize that it's much more than working or having a job that gets you through life on life's terms. And I was very judgmental, not only of myself, but of others. Like if somebody did, I never realized that I was seeing something in them that it was in me. I never saw it like that. I was just like, that person's no good. Oh, that person has no self-respect, no dignity. Not realizing that person probably was just coming in the door and was probably struggling as much as I was struggling. I didn't look at that. I kind of judged. And if I judge, it's like that person could have been the person to say something to save my life, but I wasn't open to it. So I wasn't open-minded like I should have been. So I noticed that all in this time when I came in. So when I came in this time, I said, I need help. I know I need help, and only way I'm gonna get it, I have to ask for it, and I have to be. They say rigorously honest. Okay, I gotta let everybody know everything. I gotta let my sponsor know every little detail.
Mm-hmm.
If I had an experience in this, I had an experience. There was things I was thinking when I came in this time. I was like, well, I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm not gonna. But then I said, wait a second. Isn't that what I did the last time and it didn't work? And then when something major hit me in my life, I couldn't even deal with it. So I decided to become vulnerable, completely vulnerable. And that sometimes, like sometimes I feel ashamed, sometimes admitting certain things, but I admit it. I'm like, yep. You know, and the vulnerability, and people don't judge me. Sometimes it's the creation in my mind that, oh, people are gonna judge me. Oh, I'm not gonna talk about myself because people are gonna judge me because I can't cry, bro. Man, I got other people coming up to me and say, I haven't cried either. But if somebody else speaks about losing their child, it's almost like I get choked up because I empathize. That's another thing I got. I got empathy, and empathy doesn't allow me to judge other people. And then I noticed too that, somebody said, just be kind. So I said, yo, let me take these simple words I probably heard my whole life. Let me put them into action. I put them into action. I noticed one thing. Every time I'm kind, I never pick up a resentment because I'm being kind. I have no time for it. So I'm just trying to work the program to the best of my ability. I believe my son's looking down on me from heaven, and he's probably looking down saying, that's the dad I know. That's the dad I knew. I'm just doing the next right thing. I'm learning to take the memories and not let them hurt me, but cherish them as a gift because they were a gift. The 22 years I had with this child was a gift to me. So, instead of saying he only had 22 years, thank God he had those 22 years. My perception has changed so much since the last time. And I'm willing. I'm open minded and willing and I'm honest. It does suck to bury your child, but there's a way to get through it. Just because you bury your child and you're hurting doesn't mean that you can't enjoy life. You enjoy life by enjoying the memories of them and continue, instead of being at a place and going, oh, I remember Thanksgiving. My son would sit there, be like, man, I'm glad my son sat there them years for Thanksgiving, and just realizing there's other people still suffering. I'm not alone. There's other people that are not alone. We just got to reach out more to each other.
And I think you sharing about it in the rooms so vulnerably allows other people to open up about their own issues with their past. I mean, I've heard you share about your own molestation.
Yes.
And when somebody hears you doing that, they can say, oh my God, me too. And look at this person, they're admitting it. Maybe I can admit it too. Maybe I can free myself from that burden that I've been carrying this secret for so very long. So when you do that, it's therapeutic to other people. And one thing I can say is this year I watched you suffer immensely over your daughter being missing and your
Yes.
grandchildren being
Mm.
missing. I mean, you were sharing about it for months.
Yes.
And that was very, very early in your recovery. I remember you were picking up key tags under the glow in the dark.
Yeah.
So, what do you think was different this time? Because you didn't pick up. You just kept sharing about it and sharing about it and sharing about it.
Um. Well, I brought it to my sponsor's attention, and I said, "Listen, my daughter's missing, and so are my grandchildren." And I remember that her mother had just died the previous Mother's Day, and this is around the time where we lost communication. And I'm going, I couldn't find it. I actually had packed my bags in the program I'm in. I was gonna leave, and I was talking to my sponsor, and I was like, I can't sit still. I just can't sit here and not go and look for them or try to find them. Somebody said to me, all right, your sisters are worried about them. I said, yeah, they are. What happens if you leave this program? Now you just added another worry to your sisters.
Mm,
So I looked at him and said, well, I didn't look at it like that. She said, just keep on talking about it, which I did. I kept on talking about it. And like people like yourself reaching out to me and asking me, yo, is everything, have you heard anything? Asking me like, I was like, all right, I'm not alone in this. Some people care about, and it's just, I'll be honest with you, I just stuck to my guns and said, I turned my will and life over to a higher. I really stuck to my guns because I had so much going on still. But I was like, oh my God, please don't let this happen again to me. And he didn't. It's July 4th. I got a phone call. It was my daughter and my grandkids on the 4th of July. I was at a picnic at Hour Park. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. And finally, we're still in touch to this day now. And she was like, sorry. And then me with my phone, losing one phone, then trying to get the other, going to my son, getting a number again. Thank God she's doing well. And so are the grandchildren. But yeah, that was scary because once I couldn't get in touch with her, the first thing that went through my mind was my son.
right.
Okay, I buried your son. Like I don't know why my mind just went to that, but I was scared. I was very scared, and I kept on talking about it in meetings and letting people know this is how I feel. I'm hurt, man. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on, and sometimes not knowing, but then people will tell me, yo, trust in your higher power. And I follow suggestions. This time, what I'm doing totally different is that I'm taking every suggestion. I'm like, my way completely does not work. I need somebody else to let me kind of guide me through this, and like in one of the readings too, it's like, you do God's will until it becomes your true own will.
Mm.
So I'm praying and I know He's there for me. I'm doing God's will, and it's God's will working through me. So in turn, in time, it can become my true will, which I'm doing the will of God.
Mm.
So it's a process, but I'm in this journey no matter what. I am definitely. I love what I feel. I love what I see, and not only in other people, but I'm talking about what I'm seeing in myself when I look in the mirror. There was a time when I would brush my teeth just looking at the sink. Now I actually look at the mirror and look at myself while I brush my teeth. And I didn't even notice that right there would show me how much I didn't love myself. I didn't care about me. I'm not saying that I love myself 100%, but I like a lot of attributes that I'm seeing in my actions. And sometimes people got to tell me, "Damn, holy, this over here." Just speaking of that, last night I shared it about being afraid, and still being afraid, and sometimes not saying like, "Yo, I'm afraid," and about my situation now with my pulmonologist. All of a sudden, I go in the back to get a cup of coffee. Here comes this guy, gives me a big hug. He says, "So can I get your number? I know exactly what you're going through. I lost everybody in my family to that, and I'm going to my doctor." And we exchanged numbers, and he actually called me this morning. I talked to him, asked him how he was feeling. It's like that, just like you said with the rape. I got 3 men that talk to me to this day because I shared that in the meeting one time, and they actually put their hands up and was like, I've never said this to anybody. I had the same problem when I was 9 years old. I'm like sitting back there like, what? But they were like, thank you. I don't feel alone now. And I actually communicate with them, and being also that I think in any culture, but being Puerto Rican that I am, you don't talk about that,
Of course not.
which is like kind of culturally like shunned, which is kind of sad because a lot of men do suffer from it. I've been doing some readings too on the incest with the male. Being that it's less spoken, but I think more men are coming out now and not being secretive about it, like trying to, oh, don't tell nobody, trying to come out and say it does happen to us. It does happen, especially when we're young boys and stuff. So, and most likely with me, my uncle was a dopey. He was a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
So today, what do I say to myself? Maybe he didn't know what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, but he just didn't care. I mean, I'd forgiven my father. I had to forgive my father, not for him, for myself. So I wrote him a letter because he passed away. So I wrote a letter, forgiving him for what he did. But it wasn't so much for him; it was for me. You know, and things like that I was holding on to. They weigh a lot, and they can take you back out just like this, and you won't even realize it until you're already in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, this time around, I got to get rid of everything, and I don't judge anybody. Even if somebody that doesn't like me, I'll be like, oh, maybe he sees something in me that I need to correct or something. I don't know. But I don't look at it in a negative way,
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that God speaks to us spiritually. This is a spiritual program, and you carry your spirit within you. Sometimes when people speak, I just listen and be like, man, even if they weren't talking, that message was for me. I can see that. And it's about being honest with yourself. I'm hoping day by day that it gets easier to deal with death or somebody close to you like my son. But what it is, I get more tools to be able to deal with it better. It's always going to hurt. But I got things to let me and help me get through the hurt. And I think that's what's important about the 12 steps can work for anyone. And especially if you just put your mind to it and just do it, you will feel it. There's sometimes where sometimes I like all myself. I'll be like, oh my God, I just did that. Oh, look at this. Wow, I really did do that. And I'm like, wow. And then I actually see like, oh, I'm actually working this step. Like I see it in my action and I go, wow, like I wow myself, which is letting me know that I'm actually paying attention to myself. I'm caring about myself. Because anytime I got shocked or surprised was a negative thing. It was always something negative. It wasn't even, hey, that was,
Pleasant surprise.
yeah, right. It wasn't a pleasant surprise, yeah. But yeah, if you're dealing with loss, man, just remember that healing is impossible in loneliness. You have to reach out. You have to reach out and believe it. There's many people in bereavement group. I attend bereavement group. And when you meet people there too, you're like, whoa. You got some real intense bereavement groups. The majority of them, you leave choked up, people leave crying, but people are getting it out. Because sometimes, sometimes the thought of never seeing them again is like, so you never say that. You say, I'll see you later.
Hmm.
Again, changing your words that you use. I change the words that I use on myself. I try not to tell myself anything negative. I try to give myself positive attributes every day. What would I tell my sons? What would I tell my daughters? Like, let me tell myself that. Let me practice doing that. What would I tell? I wouldn't tell my son to jump off a bridge. So why would I? So I'm trying to incorporate. I'm learning to grow. I just got a year and a couple of months, but I'm a baby in this, and I'm all right with being a baby in this. I'm fine. I'm not the rabbit. I'm that turtle. I ain't got no problem. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna take my time though, so I don't miss anything.
What it sounds like to me is that you're reparenting yourself. You're being gentle and kind and giving yourself the grace that you needed and the healing and love that you needed when you were a child. You're healing your inner child, really. Because when I hear you referring to, I wouldn't tell my son that,
Mm-hmm.
you're treating yourself as you would your own child. So it's very healing to see you do that.
My sponsor goes away to these get in touch with your inner child retreats, and whatever he wants to say, he brings it back, and I always ask him questions, so he lets me know. So everything he does there, I do like in my room. Like I got this one thing I do. I take my two pillows, I put them in the center of the bed, so I'll sit on one side of the bed and look at my younger self,
Mm.
and I let him out. I talk, then I switch, and I become my younger self, and cry out to the older me, and visualize that, and believe it or not, in doing that, like sometimes my inner child's coming out. Sometimes I get excited just seeing somebody,
Mm-hmm.
like super excited, like you see your friend on the playground. And that's when I know my inner child is coming out. And I'm allowing him to grow. There was nothing wrong with my inner child. It was just the environment I was in, the decisions adults were making. When I didn't even understand what depression or anxiety was, I was probably living it already. I'm allowing that child to grow. And one thing I do mention a lot, that I'm allowing that child to grow. Like, as a father, I think I parented, I guess, quote unquote, society's way. But maybe, I didn't have a chance to grow myself. But my sons turned out to be responsible adults. The other one now that's 24 now. He's doing great. He lives in a gated community in Virginia. He's got his own car. He's got a great job. He's into the church stuff. He wants to become a deacon. I think they saw me going through my addictions where they were just like, we're not going that route. I'm proud of them, but they're even proud of me for what I'm doing. And they do love the conversations we have. And I remember the conversations we have, which is a great thing about recovery also. Which, at the same time, allows me, memories keep on coming back to me with my son, Taylor. That was his name, Taylor. Sometimes I do get sad, I'm not going to lie, because sadness is a part of the emotional spectrum, which I'm going to be sad for other things in life too. But feelings are something you go through and they don't last forever, but memories do. And when I do, the memories come back to me. I try to sit in and cherish it. Even if I'm saddened by it, at the same time, I got to remind myself there's a reason why I have that memory, and that memory is mine. I cherish it. I tell people I don't have to feel happy to make someone happy or to share happiness. That's what being kind is all about. And in doing that, believe it or not, you're being kind to yourself, whether you see it or not. That's why I journal. I journal because I got to go back and read and be like, wow. I started journaling when I first came in. I read something from last February, and I can just see the growth in my writing. And I know that was me because I wrote it. That's my handwriting. And I'm going, whoa, I came a long way from that point. point, So that right there shows me the growth. And when you see the growth yourself, it just, you feel good. Sometimes I get scared to say, "Oh, I'm proud of myself." I'll be like, "Hold on," because I'm confusing pride and proud. So again, it's my perception. When I do have a question, I do ask it if I don't understand something, because I don't know anything. I'm realizing that now, but I know one thing, that I am a good human being. And there are many good human beings out there, and I deserve to be a part of that whole, which I call Narcotics Anonymous.
Well, you definitely are part of that whole for me. And I can also attest to the growth that I've seen you go through in the last year. Just the way that you handle things in general, the way you respond to things, especially disappointments, especially
Mm,
frustrations. I see you responding with a lot more humility and trust in your higher power. I'm grateful that I got to meet you in this last year of you being clean.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you became a part of my journey. When I first met you, I was like, "There's something about you," and I'm just grateful that I stuck around and got to see you also. And it's a beautiful thing when you get to when you look forward to seeing somebody,
Yeah.
and somebody looks forward to seeing you. It's almost like, I remember the old me. You didn't want to see me. Okay, here he comes. Go that way or whatever. But now you're like, "Oh my God. And of course, with you showing your care and concern throughout whatever I'm going through medically, or when my daughter was missing, the extra care and concern, just asking about it. I was like, "Oh man, all right, I got to keep it together." She asked me, I can't mess it up. It kind of gives you an incentive, man. Like, you're not alone. And when you don't feel alone, just something about the weather. I was worried like crazy and scared about some bad news, but not feeling alone allowed me to get through it. And that's very important. Just a hello, just a hug can change a person's life, man. That one day, and I believe in it, and I believe in, like people like you, and I like your drive for your recovery. I like your drive for what you do for recovery. Not only for yourself, but what you're putting in, the work you're putting in for this program to make it better, to reach out to other people, which I think is great and awesome. It allows people like me to be able to come and voice and use our voice for something positive, and just to let people know you're not alone. You're never going to be alone, never again. Welcome to Narcotics Anonymous.
I love you, Julio. If there's anybody whose voice is more recognizable, I don't know who it
Yeah,
is. It's you.
I got one of them voices, yeah. I love you too. I love you too.
And when I thought about creating this podcast, I was like, it was early on in your recovery, right around the time that you were suffering with your daughter being missing. And I was like, damn, I really hope this guy stays clean, because I'm not getting him before a year hits. I got to get him after the year.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you were able to be part of the production, and you were able to lend your voice to the readings. You're making them accessible to a lot of people who really want to hear them. So thank you for being part of the production and telling your story.
Well, thank you for having me. And like I said to everybody, one day at a time. It works if you work it. And this is the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. It's Narcotics Anonymous. The fellowship, the unity in it, the recovery, sponsorship, and the friendships that I'm creating.
You're a great friend, Julio. I love you very much.
I love you too, Sophie, and you're a great friend too.
Thank you, my friend. The Voices of Recovery podcast is an independent production of the Works of Wisdom. We welcome your questions and donations via PayPal at voicesofrecoverypod@gmail.com. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, associated with, authorized by, endorsed by, or in any way officially connected with Narcotics Anonymous or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. While NA literature may be read during episodes for the purpose of supporting recovery, such use does not constitute an official endorsement or representation by Narcotics Anonymous. In accordance with NA tradition, the NA name is not to be used to endorse or be affiliated with any outside enterprise, and no such endorsement or affiliation is implied. Music is by Sage. Thanks for listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast.